This is it. It's time to put pencil to paper and make our own schedule, or manipulate Microsoft Excel if you would rather do this with technology. In my last post, I asked some questions to help you get started. Things like what forms your children will be in, and how many days per week will you do school. Now we are going to use that information to make your schedule. Start by looking back at my matrix to compare similarities between the forms that your students will be in this year. We are looking to find things that can be done together. For this particular example, we will use forms 2 and 4. If you are doing this electronically, I recommend that you just remove the other forms for now. Less clutter is better. You could highlight the forms you will be focusing on if you are doing this with a printout. I took it a step further and removed any subjects that neither of these students will be doing. Look at how many of the subjects the students have in common. The gray areas show things that they do not both do. There is not that many. Now granted, they may be in a different place than each other. For instance, this is Form 2's first year studying German, but Form 4 has been studying it for 2 years already. But that may not be relevant in your home. Maybe you only do one foreign language, and you do it all together. Remember, everyone's schedule is going to look different. So let's start looking at what we should add to our own schedule in each of these areas. Bible lessons. In our house, we start our school day with everyone around the table. First, we sing our hymn. Then we read a section of the Bible and narrate. Frequently, we will talk about the section after narrating, and then we say a prayer. With 2 days on each testament, that leaves a 5th day. Instead of not doing Bible on that 5th day, as is shown on the schedule, I will schedule our Sunday reading, and we will use something like a missionary biography. Notice that Form 2 usually spends 20 minutes on Bible, and Form 4 spends 30, but I have split the difference. I have also assigned 5 minutes to singing the hymn. This is just a start, a rough draft. I might change it later if I need to cut some time from somewhere. Language arts is next. Much of the language arts subject can be done together as well. Holiday and evening reading, which we will do outside of school time. Poetry. Everyone enjoys poetry. And even though you might think we have to advance the skill level every term and every year, we don't really. It's amazing how much a young student gets out of some of the harder poets, and how much an older student can enjoy some of the easier ones. This year I chose Wendell Berry as one-term poet. I wasn't sure what my kids would make of it because he doesn't rhyme, and his style is so different from anything we've read together before. But he is a personal favorite of mine, so I decided to give it a try. Imagine my surprise when my youngest children began writing poems on their own for the first time. I think the fact that he does not rhyme releases them from the need for perfection. Anyway, my point is that this can happily be a subject that everyone does together. Just alternate the difficulty. Copywork is done at different levels, of course, but everyone can be working around the same table at the same time. Dictation is also something done at different levels, but that everyone can do around the same table. I won't go into detail about how we do dictation at the same time right now, but I'll try to get around to writing a post about that in the near future. Memorization. This year I went back to having everyone memorize together. I wanted them to learn to do it Charlotte Mason's way, and it was a huge success. They learned and recited things that were over 5 minutes long. It built their confidence and showed them the benefit to doing it Charlotte Mason's way. This year, I will probably have things they do together and things they do alone. Foreign languages are next. If you are new to a Charlotte Mason style education, or at least new to learning a foreign language, then you need to start at the beginning. That may be with everyone learning one language. Charlotte Mason would not advocate starting 3 languages at once. This might be a good time to look back at how she began this subject. 1 foreign language the first year, then she added Latin and another foreign language the next year. Use this initial list to make some goals based on where you're at and where you would like to be. You can alter your list later, but right now you are brainstorming. This is sort of your wish list. Nature study and object lessons are next. Kids in both of these forms are old enough to make special studies at this point. I will schedule this for afternoons when we are having our outdoor time. History. Plutarch can be done together. I've done Plutarch with children from 8, because she just wouldn't be left out, through 18 all together. Of course, the older kids have the potential to get more out of it, but there were also times when my 10-year-old narrated portions that the high schoolers had zoned out on. Notice on my list I included 20 minutes once a week for general history. I know by looking at the programs that they each did general history, but because it's not listed on the schedule, I don't know how long was spent. I've added 20 minutes once a week to this first draft. Lastly, we have all the other stuff: picture study, drawing and painting, handicraft, dancing, singing, music appreciation, music, folk song. I scheduled some of these things for the morning because I happen to know we have trouble getting back to them in the afternoon, like picture study and folk song. I scheduled composer to be played while we prepare breakfast. Other things I will keep in the afternoon. See how much we have already covered? All of this will be done together. Now let's look at the things we can do somewhat together. The key with these items is that we will do some of it together, and then the older kids will have an extra period of time to do something additional. You see, I've added a column over there on the right for just my Form 4 students. Let's look at literature. At the very least, Shakespeare can and should be done together, but it's so enjoyable to do even more literature together. This last year, I had 2 literature books scheduled just for the big kids, but the little kids would not be left out. One was To Kill a Mockingbird, which had some themes in it that made me think it wasn't appropriate for the little girls. But with a couple of words changed, it was okay, and they loved it. Of course, the big kids got a lot more out of it, but it was very enjoyable to read together. Then, one day per week, the Form 4 student will have an extra 30-minute time period devoted to literature without the Form 2 student. Geography is another one we enjoyed together very much. One of our all-time favorite geography books is My Family and Other Animals by Gerald Jarrell. We laughed until we cried some days. And again, one day per week, the Form 4 student will have an extra 30-minute time period to do an additional geography selection. Some U.S. history can be done together. You may have noticed by now that I replaced CM's English history with U.S. history. It was her home country, and I think she would say that we should all make studying our home country a priority, biographies especially. Then, one day per week, the Form 4 student will have an extra 40-minute time period to read U.S. history. On the schedules, I found that Charlotte Mason's students changed from a study of French history, their own neighboring country, to European history in the later forms. That said, my big kids had not studied English history before beginning to homeschool, and had therefore never read Our Island Story. It is not to be missed for a person of any age, so my big kids were assigned to read this with the little kids, and it worked out very well. This leaves us with just a few things for the students to do individually or with Mom. This looks complicated, but it really is not as bad as it seems. The main thing to keep in mind is that Form 2's alone work is on the far right in this depiction. Composition. Form 2 is only just starting to do written narrations at this point. I won't schedule that in because it will move around each week. Grammar will continue for Form 4, but Form 2 will just be getting started, so they will not be at the same level. Science is progressing for Form 4. I've included botany and other science for them, as well as health. Form 2 will continue doing natural history 3 times per week. General science is also included on programs at times, and I will likely use something that crosses the bridge between natural history and general science at least one day per week, such as the Storybook of Science. Physical geography will find the kids at different levels too. The younger kids will still have it as part of outdoor life in the afternoon, but the older kids will be using a book now. Also, the big kids will be doing map quizzes. Math will of course be done separately. A clever mom will still be able to combine a little of this by having the kids play math games together or doing some mental math. Lastly, the big kids will continue reading and narrating on current events without the little kids. Now we have a first draft of what will be done in our week every week. But there is still more to do. We have to make sure everything is going to fit in our time frame. I find this easiest to do when I start with a blank chart. Use your list to populate the chart with things everyone will be doing. Add the amount of time allotted to the beginning of each row, and only add things to that row that are supposed to take that long. We can move things around later, so don't worry. Now add things that everyone will be doing later in the day to the bottom of the chart. Next, add things that only your Form 2 child will be doing with you, like math and grammar. Now add things that your Form 4 child can be doing independently while you are working with your Form 2 child. These things are happening at the same time, so they occupy the same cell in our table. I have used a vertical line to delineate the separation of the two items. Lastly, add the things that only your older child will be doing. This will include things that you may need to help with, like math and chemistry experiments. That all came together so quickly and seamlessly, but in reality, this part is what will take you some time. There is a lot of moving around things like a jigsaw puzzle, and the more children you have, or the more forms you are trying to work with, the more complicated the puzzle becomes. But you can do it. I know you can. Once things look settled, go back and review the form breakdown sheet to see how on target you are with the time allotted to a school day. You can see that I'm too high on time for everyone. This is where the really hard part comes in. I cannot schedule a 5 to 6 hour morning for my oldest and still expect him to have any outdoor time or afternoon activities like handicraft or a music lesson. Remember the article I noted last week about how awful it is for a parent to overschedule their older children? You might have to make some tough calls, shortening some lessons or removing some things altogether. But try to remember that it is the quality of the time you spend when you are doing a Charlotte Mason education and not the amount of time. Once you do have the right amount of time scheduled, you can adjust what order things appear in on your schedule. Remember that Miss Kitching said that in making her own timetable, the teacher must be careful that no two lessons requiring the same mental effort follow one another in close proximity. And of course, you can continue to make adjustments throughout the year as needed until you find the right flow, primarily in the order of subjects or the day it is presented. Once you have made the hard decisions and left a few things on the cutting room floor, your schedule will be complete and you will be ready for the next step. In my opinion, this is the most fun step. You're going to clean up your list so that you can add books to it. There are several book list resources to help you fill it in completely. Some useful resources are Ambleside Online, the Simply Charlotte Mason Book Finder, WorldCat Book Search. It can also be very helpful to ask other Charlotte Mason parents for their recommendations. The Top Picks series by Living Books Library is very good. And if you would like more support picking books that work well for multiple age levels, you might consider scheduling a personal consultation by phone or email with Liz Cottrill of the Living Books Library or Nancy Kelly. Feel free to put notes or extra books on this list in case something you plan to use doesn't work out. For example, you might start the book and find you don't like it at all, or you can't get a copy of the book after all, or the book is 400 pages long but you have only 9 weeks of school left, so maybe you want something shorter. Or, here's one of my favorites, it's time to start the book and you realize that you don't know what you were thinking when you chose it. So choose some extras. Also remember that the PNEU programs frequently listed more than one book per subject in a term. Thank you for hanging in there through this video. It's not easy, but it is well worth the effort.